So I got this question. I'm going to explain to you why you should never ever start a pollinator garden by tilling the ground. And after that, I'm going to explain the two ways I would go about it. There are different options. If you want something more cheap that takes more time, by seed, or if you want to do it by transplant, which can be a lot more quick, a lot more effective. I build these gardens for people. My name is Nick with my company, Eternal Harvest. I build pollinator gardens, food forests. So I'm going to explain what works and what doesn't work. The problem with tilling, now there's, I'd say, two really big problems with tilling the ground when you're starting a pollinator garden. Number one is that whatever grasses and weeds are already there, the roots of them are going to stay alive and they're going to have energy. They're going to come up and outcompete whatever seeds you put down. I've seen people just try and start with seeds where there's already grasses. After a couple of years, there's a couple wildflowers mixed in, but really you just end up with a tall grass yard. And beyond that, when we're building a pollinator garden, and especially if you're building a food forest, something you want to be lush, something you want to thrive, that top layer of soil, when you have a grass lawn, that is very ecologically dead. The soil there is not very good. But the best part of it, the only good stuff that is there is that top layer. That's where you're going to have the most biomass, the most organic matter. And the foundation of good soil is ecology. It's the soil food web, everything from bacteria to fungi to nematodes. And the foundation of that life is organic matter. Organic matter is what's needed for the bacteria, the nematodes, the insects, the earthworms to thrive. It's the foundation of it. It's what improves soil quality and structure and feeds the microorganisms. So most of the organic matter in the area you have is in that top layer. The further down you go, the less nutrient dense the soil is, pretty much in any system. The top soil is always the richest. So when you go and till, yes, you're mixing in that top layer with the deeper areas, but you're basically putting in a blender. Any fungi that are in there are going to get shredded up. And what you're doing is you're exposing it all to oxygen. The reason that tilling in farming looks like it has a good impact is because you're basically burning through all the nutrients. Those that organic matter, those nutrients, when they're exposed to oxygen, microorganisms break them down and make them bioavailable to plants. So if you go and you till anything, you're basically taking all the nutrients that are there, making them bioavailable, and then whatever plants you put on there will grow very well. As far as long term, even just after that first year, you're basically just destroying all of the built up reservoirs of nutrients of healthy soil. So tilling is going to be bad for weeds, and it's basically going to destroy whatever nutritious soil you do have there. Now, both of the methods that I'm going to suggest for starting a pollinator garden, and we're going to keep this at just a pollinator garden, but this does apply to food forestry as well. Um, I'd say the first option I would only use if you're going to be planting stuff by seed. So let's say you have a lot of seed, you want to build a pollinator garden, what you're going to do is something called occultation. Occultation is basically taking a 8 millimeter polyurethane silage tarp. Basically, what that is a black sheet of plastic, and you can put it over the grass for as long as 3 months to a full season for really difficult grasses. And what this is going to do, and I know it sounds bad, it's plastic. Really, this is the most ecological way. As far as market gardening, I had a market garden for a while. This is like the only time the healthiest market gardeners use plastic is when you're doing occultation. What this is going to do is heat up the soil, break down all that organic matter. So all that stuff I was telling you in that top layer of soil, it's food for earthworms. It's going to break it down without shredding it up and basically feed it into the soil while also killing it. The one thing that can happen with that as far as soil microbiology is it can get a bit anaerobic under there. You want good oxygen, aerobic oxygen, in order to have healthy soil. That's not the end of the world. It's overall going to be great for the health of the soil while killing all the weeds that are there completely. So you take this plastic off, you have some pretty good soil. You might want to get a fork in there and pry it up. It's called broad forking to add a little more oxygen in there. But you're going to have this really healthy soil with absolutely no weeds. And so from there you can go, like the question said, throw down your seeds and then rake it up, and there's not going to be any competition there. Some birds might bring in some weed seeds, but overall it's going to be very low competition. All you need to do is keep those seeds adequately watered, and you're going to have a very dense, very well grown prairie pollinator ecosystem, and it's very simple. So yes, you have plastic in your yard for a few months, but the amount of work that needs to be done to do this is very low. For me, when I'm working on bigger projects, when I talk to someone who has a budget, this is the type of thing that can be really high leverage, really low effort. You just come, put it in. Next thing you know, you can spread all your seeds and it's actually going to work. Now, the way that I most often build pollinator gardens, and this will apply to a food forest that has more fruit trees, fruit bushes, or just a prairie ecosystem, is let's kill those weeds by putting a layer of natural compostable landscaping paper down. So if you go to Menards, you're going to see builder's paper. It's just natural paper. It's basically cardboard. You can use cardboard. This is just so much easier than putting a bunch of pieces of cardboard together, and you don't have to worry about the dyes getting into your soil. So, a layer of cardboard, a layer of compost for prairie plants. They are accustomed to low nutrient soil, low nutrient environments, especially nitrogen. So, a thin layer of compost is fine because you're going to be putting wood chips on top of it, and that's going to soak up the nitrogen, and we're going to let it sit for a bit, ideally, which will take that nitrogen kick out of it, and it'll be less hard on the plants. However, you want to use fully aged compost, something that's immature, not fully aged, is going to have it's going to cause problems with those plants. So you put the paper down, you put a thin layer, 1 inch of compost, then you put 4 to 6 inches of ecologically sourced, I mean, no heavy metals, no reused wood products, no allelopathic chemicals. And what this looks like is you ask the wood chip supplier, does this come from black walnut tree? As far as in Minnesota, that's pretty much all you have to worry about, and you would ideally ask for a variety of wood chips. If it's just oak or something, it's fine, but variety is better for nutrients. And so that mulch in and of itself would do a pretty good job of smothering those weeds and fully killing them. This is called sheet mulching, by the way, in permaculture. But the paper just gives you a little head start to be absolutely sure it's going to kill those weeds. Now, depending on what's underneath, you would want to let this sit for a while. If you have less vigorous grasses, you can actually start digging right away, although it's usually best to wait. And then you're going to go get transplants of native plants from a nursery. These are little potted plants. You dig a hole, you put it in, and there's wood chips all around it. You just have a little hole for that plant. You put the wood chips up against it, not touching the stem because that can cause fungal diseases, but to keep those weeds down. And so this is a really good way to get things established fast. They have a head start, they're growing fast. Just depending on your budget and what you want to do, um, will kind of decide if you want to do the tarp option or this option. So, as far as building a pollinator garden, a food forest is more complicated because you're designing this complicated forest ecosystem. If you're trying to grow fruit, you really want ecological balance to be in place. As far as a pollinator garden, there's a lot of factors to consider as far as building a really quality ecosystem so things will thrive. Different plants fill different ecological niches. When you fill these ecological niches, that's when your system is going to thrive. As far as attracting bees, there's actually a natural pattern that the different colors of flowers will form in wild prairies that the bees can actually sense based on the contrast and the patterns. If you just have a whole yellow thing and there's no contrast, there's not the right pattern, it's going to be actually harder for the bees to see it. So there's a lot of factors to consider as far as the design. If you want to do this right, that's beyond the scope of this video. This is really just about how to do everything else. But if you do just want to go put down some native flowering plants, that's a good start. If you don't build a perfect ecosystem, you can at least do that. It's better than a grass lawn. But that's what I do. I design these for people and I just design and install them for people. Um, so yeah, for the person that asked this question, this video was for you. Um, Anyways, anyone else, hope it was helpful as well. My name is Nick, and peace. Any questions you guys have, I will pretty much answer any question for people and make an individual video about it, answering exactly what you asked.